Good morning, little childlings. Um, Here we are, we're starting our first proper lesson on the boy at the back of class. And this is normally the kind of lesson that I would like to do as a group, because it's the kind of thing that we would talk through and we would have a discussion. So really, if it's possible, maybe you could do this with an adult and have a little bit of a discussion about what you've read so far. Okay, now what we are going to do here, so I've got this extract here and the quality, I'm afraid, is not brilliant, but I have sent it to you also as an attachment to Seesaw, so you can look at it there as well. You might want to look at it, get that open now, because it's probably easier to see than this one on YouTube, and you'll be able to make it bigger, which you can't do to this screen. And I'll read it to you, but it is better if you can look at it as we're reading, because we're going to be referring to specific words and so on. So this is from chapter 1 of the book, and if you've read chapter 1 then you'll recognise the passage. It was all very serious and exciting, but before we could start guessing about what was going on, Mrs. Sanders came back, and this time she wasn't alone. Standing behind her was a boy none of us had ever seen before. He had short dark hair and large eyes that hardly ever blinked, and smooth pale skin. "Everyone," said Mrs. Can, as the boy went and stood next to her. "This is Ahmet, and he'll be joining our class from today. He's just moved to London and is new to the school, so I hope you'll all do your very best to make him feel welcome." We all watched in silence as Mrs. Sanders led him to the empty chair. I felt sorry for him because I knew he would be sitting next to Clarissa. No, I knew he wouldn't like sitting next to Clarissa very much. She still missed Dina, and everyone knew she hated boys. She says they're stupid and smell. I think it must be one of the worst things in the world to be new to a place and have to sit with people you don't know, especially people that stare and scowl at you like Clarissa was doing. I made a secret promise to myself right there and then that I would be friends with the new boy. I happened to have some lemon sherbets in my bag that morning, and I thought I would try and give him one at break time. And I would ask Josie and Tom and Michael if they would be his friends too. After all, having 4 new friends would be much better than having none, especially for a boy who looked as scared and as sad as the one now sitting at the back of our class. Okay, so I'm going to put some marks on this as we go, so you might want to jump backwards and forwards between the good quality and this, what I'm showing you on the screen. Okay, so we're going to look at the word here, exciting. Oops, it's not very easy to draw on a PC. So the question I'm asking you to think about and really to discuss if you can is it possible to find ordinary things? And the example here would be an empty chair at the back of a classroom. And you think about our classroom, and there are some empty chairs that are around the room. They're not actually at a desk, they're sitting at the sides. Is it possible that they could be exciting? How is it possible that this empty chair is exciting? Okay, and then we've got this phrase, and this time she wasn't alone. This also is helping to build up suspense, to make the reader think, what's coming next? She wasn't alone. Who could possibly be with her? And in the next paragraph it tells us that it was a boy, and a boy none of us had ever seen before. Now, that has got a capital letter and a full stop. But is it really a sentence, or is it just a phrase? Well, it might surprise you that this is actually not a proper sentence. Although it's got a full stop and a capital letter, and it's in a proper book, this is not a real sentence. A boy none of us had ever seen before is only a phrase. If you were asked a question, who is that boy, and you answered, a boy none of us had ever seen before, if you wrote that down as a reading comprehension answer, it wouldn't be good enough. You would have to say, this is a boy none of us had ever seen before, or that is a boy none of us had ever seen before. You need to make it a full sentence. So you might be wondering, how is it possible that somebody has written a book and it's been published and people are buying it and it doesn't have a proper sentence in it, or it's got a sentence in it that isn't a proper sentence? Well, the answer is people who know language well know how to put these clever little devices, clever little things in the middle of stories to also, as this is doing, heighten the tension, make us feel, I wonder what's coming, I wonder what's coming. Okay, let's look further on at this phrase, eyes that hardly blinked. Now that might give us an indication of how this boy is feeling. So how do you think he might be feeling at this point if he has got eyes that hardly blink? We can also see we all watched in silence. So there's a lot of looking going on here. Watched in silence. Why would a class be watching in silence? You think about a situation in the classroom. If, say, Mrs. Cullen comes into the classroom and I'm having a conversation with her, what do you normally do? Well, you would normally start a conversation of your own, which would have to be interrupted every now and again if it gets too loud, so that Mrs. Cullen and I can still hear each other. But that's not what's happening in here. The whole class is watching Mrs. Can, Mrs. Sanders, and the boy, and they're watching in silence. So what do you think might be going through the minds of the children in the class if they're watching in silence? Okay. Let's look at this word here. I felt sorry. So the person, the narrator is feeling sorry immediately for Amit. It's the kind of first emotion, feeling sorry, being able to sympathise. And what it even says that the poor boy would be sitting next to Clarissa, who maybe wasn't the best partner to have in a new class. So what other things further down does the storyteller tell us might make life difficult for Amit? And so, I mean, some of you have been new to the school, but some of you have made friends with new people in the school. Is that how it really feels? You can have a think about that, and as I say, if there's somebody there to discuss with, that will make your life easier. Let's look at this. I would be friends with the new boy. So the storyteller is telling this is what I want to do. What do we know then about the character of this storyteller? What kind of person is the storyteller? What kind of words do you think that you would use to describe a character like that? Now, right down at the bottom here, we've got two words, scared and sad, that describe possibly how Amit is feeling right now. What do you think Amit might be feeling being sent to the back of the class? Now, in our classroom, we don't really have a back because we've got boards at both sides, and sometimes I'm at one side of the classroom, sometimes at the other. So sometimes maybe you're near the back, but then if I move, then you're near the front. But there are classrooms that only have one front. They don't have a back. They either only have a smart board, or they only have a whiteboard, or sometimes the smart board and the whiteboard are in the same place. So let's assume in this classroom that that is the case. So there is a definite back, and perhaps the desks, I get the impression here that all the desks are facing the same way. They're all facing the front. So if you were new and feeling scared and sad, how do you think you would feel about going to the back of the class? Would that be a good thing, or would that be a bad thing? Okay, now these are just opinion questions. They're just things for you to think about. They are not, you don't really need to give me answers. Just let me know that you have completed the task. And as I say, if I'm more than willing to hear, if you want to record some of your thoughts on this first interaction between the class and Amit, I'm more than happy to hear them. But if you just want to think them through, or as I say, if you've discussed them with somebody in the house, I'm fine with that too.